In this final video, we are going to just finish up everything we've done by adding a main menu to our game. Adding a main menu is fairly simple, and a lot of it really just comes down to the design that you guys use. Make sure it suits your game. You can find images online to use. But the main menu itself is fairly simple. We've done UI before, and this is nothing new compared to that. In fact, a lot of the actual programming is even less than it was when we were doing UI for the player. So to start, let's house our main menu in a new level. So I'll make a new level. I'll save it out. I'll call this one main menu. And it is in my content folder. Let's open this up. So currently in our game, in the project settings and maps and modes, our default game mode is GM Twin Stick. That is our Twin Stick game mode. That is really the game mode that's going to be used for every, if we have multiple levels. This GM Twin Stick will be used for all of those levels. But we can't use GM Twin Stick for our main menu. We need to make a different game mode for that. So I'm going to do that. Let's make a new game mode. And I'll call this GM main menu. So in the game mode override setting for my level, I'm going to change this main menu level to use GM main menu rather than using our Twin Stick, which is the project overall. I'm going to open up our GM main menu. We don't have to mess with any of the class settings. All of that can stay as default, but we do need to add some code into our event graph. What we need to do is first get our player controller. And we need to tell Unreal that we want to accept input only for the UI and not for like the game itself. That way that default player class that spawns, the one that we can move around with and fly, we're not moving that player as we're navigating the menus and clicking on things. So to do that, we get the player controller and we just type in set input. And there's a couple options: set input mode game and UI, set input mode game only, set input mode UI only, which is the one we want for us. So let's do that. And then next, we need to actually make the UI widget. So let's do that next. Go under user interface, make a widget blueprint, a user widget, and I will just call it widget main menu. Okay, and my main menu is going to be fairly simple. What I'm going to do is start by adding a canvas panel. And I want to give this a background image. So to do that, I have a background logo that I downloaded. So I'm just going to import this into Unreal. And I can just drag this background here, size it up to the screen size, which I know is 1920 by 1080. Oh, that was its position, wrong one. So we'll set the position back to 0, and I can just size this up. The other way I could have done this rather than manually typing everything, so imagine it was all whack again, I could just go into this anchors, and there's this full screen anchor. Make sure that we are holding shift to align the position and control to update the shift to update the alignment and control to update the position, and it just does the exact same thing as before. To this main menu, I want to add a title, so I'm going to add a title here, and then below that I want to add 2 menu buttons. Now, I could go in and start adding things one by one. So if I wanted my 2 buttons, I could add a button, give it the size that I want. I could add another button, give it the size that I want. But aligning these are going to be a little difficult. Instead, I want to auto-align these, and I'm just going to use a new component for that. It's going to be called a vertical box. So Unreal has a few of these type of boxes. There's a vertical box and a horizontal box. A vertical box, as the name suggests, will lay things out vertically. A horizontal box will lay things out left to right. So let me add this vertical box in here. You can see it's up here now. I'm just going to make this image hidden for a bit while we work with this vertical box. We can move the vertical box itself around. But if we start adding stuff to this vertical box, so let us say I add some text to it. Text block. Make sure it's childed to the vertical box. You can see there's my text box. And if I click the text box, I can move it around. And when I do move it around, notice that it unchilds itself from the vertical box. But if I child it, it snaps right back into place. So really, as long as there's going to be a child of the vertical box, we cannot be moving the text itself around. And now let's just see what happens when I add a button to it. So this text is going to be the title of my game. Going to take a button, add it to the vertical box, make it move down, and you can see that this vertical box is laying things out like vertically. If I add in, or if I just duplicated this button, it adds it like right under it. If I keep duplicating this button, it's just going to keep adding it under it. So a vertical box and a horizontal box is good for keeping like a nice grid-like layout where things are aligned, rather than us having to manually move things around. And a very nice thing about these tools is they let us like reorganize our widgets without, again, having to manually move stuff around. So let's just real quick set this up. I'll give my game a title. I'll call it Twin Stick the Game. And I need to give this button some text as well. So let's add a text component into the button. Make sure it's childed. And we'll have one button for start game. And I'll make another button that just quits. Okay, so we have this. I can move the vertical box itself around. We can check this size to content here. So our vertical box sizes itself, to the content. And this is fine. I just don't like the spacing between this. I don't like that everything is so close together. Let's give everything like a little space, to breathe. So when everything is childed to the vertical box, we can select its children. And you'll see the topmost option now says slot, vertical box slot, and there's a padding option. If you guys have done any website creation, you should know what padding is. It just adds like extra space. I'm going to just drop down the padding. I only want to add padding to the bottom, and I'm just going to give it maybe 10 pixels of space. I'll do the same for this button as well. Give it 10 pixels of space. Okay, there you go. I think, now the buttons have some spacing, some separation, so things look good. Let's just look at one last little thing about the buttons. With our buttons, if we come under style, we have normal, hover, and pressed. Again, if you've done any kind of website making, these should be very familiar concepts. Normal is just what our button looks like. If I change the color, you can see the button's color changes. Hover is what happens when our mouse goes over the button. So let me make it, when we hover, it goes to purple. And pressed is what happens when we click our mouse button down, and we'll just make that yellow. Just to, see the change here. And if I get my main menu back, you can see it says Twin Stick the Game. Actually, I don't like that this Twin Stick is just, it's there on its own without any background. So let's give it a background. I believe it's called a border component. So let's just add that. Add it to our vertical box. Make sure we move it all the way up. And then just child the game to the box, or I'm sorry, child the text to the border. They're both white right now, so let's make the text black. And we got to give the border the padding that the text had before. And let's remove the padding from the text. Okay, there you go. I think that looks much better. Obviously, the colors are all weird. These are just choices to show you guys how to make this. But there you go. We have our UI, our main menu kind of made for this. We just have to get this main menu to display on screen. Because right now, if I play the game, I've set my input mode to UI only, so I can't move around anymore. But we haven't added the main menu widget. So let's do that. Back in my GM game mode, I'm just going to add widget. Actually, I should just do it here. Add widget. Or is it create widget? Yeah, create widget. And we're going to create our widget blueprint main menu and add it to viewport. Okay, so that should get our main menu spawning. If we come back here and we hit play, we have a working main menu. Well, it doesn't work, but we have a main menu that shows up. I can click the buttons and you can see the start game button. It's blue. I hover over it, it's pink. When I click, it turns yellow. So you guys can customize those colors as well. Now let's just add the functionality we need for this, for our main menu. And to do that, back in our main menu, I'm going to give these buttons sensible names to start. So I'll call one BTN start game. And I'm going to call the other BTN quit. Let's make sure they're both variables so we can use them in blueprints. And then in our blueprint graph, with one of the buttons selected, so I have start game currently selected. If I go down to the details panel, there are events here. On clicked, on pressed, on released, on hovered, and on unhovered. So these are all events we can use. On clicked is going to be when we just tap the button, like we click and release. Pressed is going to be, you can hold the button down for as long as you want. When you released, on pressed will be called. On released, again, is just when we release it. On hovered is when we hover over it, and unhover is, when we like hover over it and then we get out of that hover. I'm just going to use on pressed. If I click the plus, it adds this on pressed on button start game. Well, what do I want to do when we start game? I just want to change level. I think it was load level. Yeah, load. No, it was open level. Unreal has way too many nodes. It's open level. I want to open level by name. What is the name of the level I want to open? Well, it's test, so let me just put that there. And let's also do quit. So on quit, on pressed, what do I want to do? Well, there's a node called quit game. I just want to call that. And really, that gives us a working main menu where main menu opens. I hit quit. It takes us back to the editor. And if I hit start game, it's going to start our game. So currently I can't move here, and that is because back in our GM main menu, we changed the input mode to UI only. We need to change that back, so I think the easiest way to do that is in our twin stick game mode where we don't have any code. I'm just going to add the code for that. I'm just going to go set input mode to game and UI, and then get the player controller. Let's just add this in here. Okay, so now when I play it, we can still quit. And if I hit start game, we spawn in our level. We can run around. We can shoot. I believe there should be an enemy spawner somewhere up there. Yep, there's an enemy. And there you go. Our game works. Fairly simple to add a main menu. Again, a lot of the main menu stuff is simple to implement. It's just more of a design aspect. How do you want your main menu to look? Do we want some main menu music? You can even add sound effects. Remember, our buttons have this hovered and unhovered event. We can play sounds there, so we can have sound effects playing, when we press the buttons. And really, think about the design. Making main menus is a largely fun thing because the actual implementation is easy. It's really just making or finding the art. So yeah, I hope you guys have fun making your main menus, and this should also make our game feel way more complete. Really, to make our game feel fully complete, we need one more thing, which is like a pause menu where we can quit the game, but that's beyond the scope of this class. Anyway, thank you for watching.